Welcome. I'm Debbie Hughes. I'm the editorial director at RFID Journal, and I'm going to be hosting your session today. Having said that, welcome to the Designing for a Connected World session. Today, our speaker, Kate Stone, will share how to add a digital soul to everyday objects and design, prototype, and manufacture physical products almost as quickly as the digital experience. Kate is from the UK, as you're going to hear very quickly, and she now lives in Woodstock, New York. She has a degree in electronics from Salford University and also a PhD in physics from Cambridge University. However, she believes the most useful things that she learned in life were discovered during 4 years of travel throughout Australia and Asia, and in particular, working on a sheep farm for 2 years in the Australian outback. Before we begin the session, I do just have 3 quick reminders for our audience. First, please type in any questions for our speaker during the presentation. She'll join us for a live Q&A when the presentation concludes. You'll see the little box sort of at the bottom of the Zoom. The session is being broadcast over Zoom webinar, and yes, I know we now think we're all experts in Zoom, but a Zoom webinar is a little bit different than a Zoom meeting. This uses the host computer to share content with all of the attendees. And of course, for the best performance, you really should try to close any applications on your computer that might prevent you from getting the most out of the session. You will be muted during the session. And again, if you want to ask any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. Also, please don't forget to rate the session when it's over. You're going to be prompted to answer 4 quick questions. So it's helpful to the speakers to get this kind of feedback. And of course, it's helpful for the HAL team to know what's of interest, what works, and what they can use for future programs. And yes, we will have future programs. Okay, so now let's welcome Kate Stone, CEO, Novelia, to the HAL Design Live stage. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate. Welcome to my studio. So I describe myself as a creative scientist, and my team and I at the company I founded called Novelia try to add a little magic and connectivity to everyday objects. So most of the things around me often do a little bit more than might first appear. So let me show you one of my favorite posters. It is an intergalactic alien music remixing rap battle. We created this for a music studio in Brooklyn called Ant Food, and touching these places here starts the music, and then the characters rap. Okay, the air horn is my favorite sound, so that's kind of fun. So we create things like this in the physical world with agencies and brands, and we do it to make people stop in their tracks and experience something that might trigger emotions such as surprise and delight and wonder or awe. And now I'd love to share with you some more of the things that my team and I have created over the years. But first, I'd like to explore a little with you why I do what I do, explain how playing with technology as a child, failing high school and becoming a sheep herder turned out to be the perfect education for me. And later I'd like to discuss how my curiosity took me on a search for a better understanding of humanity's relationship with technology, to question if we need technology at all, and to ask if making life easier actually helps or hinders our mental health, relationships and environment. So I've also been trying to wrap my head around who we are, what's the difference between brain and mind, and how can I increase my chances of surviving the zombie apocalypse. But more of that and a little bit of my ham radio later on. Alright, so I was a strange child, and I can remember running wires under the carpet in my bedroom, up the walls, and then connecting speakers, switches, and microphones, hiding in the loft space, calling out to my siblings and confusing them as my voice appeared to come from behind the bookshelf or under my bed. I told you I was a little strange. I also remember taking one of my dad's favourite books, Captain Hornblower, and carving out the inside to place a radio transmitter I'd built from a kit that I found on the back page of a magazine. So I hid the book near my parents, crept off to my bedroom, tuned in the radio to eavesdrop. I heard things I can't unhear, and it turns out it's more difficult to unhear than hear. But I realise now that I did these things more because I could, driven by curiosity and a desire to allow everyday objects to become magical and connected. And I've always been particularly inspired with the idea of modifying what we have around us in subtle ways to alter our experience or perception of reality. And another childhood moment that stuck with me is when my grandmother said, "Cut your coat from the cloth at hand." And that advice has stuck with me and somehow found its way into nearly everything that I do. Well, I spectacularly failed high school, and my parents bought me what turned out to be a one-way ticket to Australia. Now, I'm not sure if it was punishment for the trick with the radio or even if they ever knew, but off to Australia I went. And for 3 years, I worked on various farms and factories. And for 2 of those years, I worked on and off on an 120,000 acre farm with 22,000 sheep in far western New South Wales. Now, I got the job by lying that I could ride a motorbike, and of course, I never had. And working on that farm taught me a lot about resourcefulness and resilience, and also that preparedness calms and panic kills. And there were times when a simple decision could have cost me my life whilst working in the desert on my own in the extreme heat. You had to make do and mend and think on your feet and keep your wits about you. And I learnt to ride that motorbike by falling off it every single day I rode it. Though to be fair, we were mostly off-road, up and down steep ravines and jumping over creeks and avoiding the occasional unmarked mine shaft. But every day we would be moving sheep, and I learned that sheep don't do what you want them to do if you just try and make them. You have to know the lay of the land, where the water is, the fences, and the noise you make. And in this way, you can let the sheep do what you want them to do, allowing without commanding. So after a year of traveling home through Asia, I managed to weasel my way into a university. And I worked hard, and with a determination, I earned a first class honours degree in electronics. And this opened a whole new world to me, and I was offered a funded PhD in physics at Cambridge. So my PhD was to move electrons one by one, and I quickly realised that those electrons were very similar to sheep. So to move the electrons, I patterned silicon wires just a few nanometers across, and at a temperature of a few hundred degrees Celsius below freezing, applied a voltage across the nanowires. And the electrons would jump along the wire one by one. And by using a sensitive circuit, I could watch them go by, again, allowing without commanding. And this is when I started to realize how much our environment affects our every decision. So after my PhD, I worked at a university spin out, creating ways to print circuits of plastic transistors. And 4 years later, I left, totally inspired with printing as a manufacturing process. Print's the most pervasive manufacturing process in the world. It's also in every city and even in our homes. It's also the most pervasive user interface. From curtains to clothes, carpets, walls, and packaging, it's even on the keys on a keyboard. And I wondered if it was possible to print conductive ink onto everyday items, to add a layer of interactivity. And yes, I was met with many naysayers. So as a scientist and engineer with a admittedly limited artistic capability, my first new hire was a graduate called Maria. Now, I've always wanted user experience to outshine any technology that I create, similar to when I was a child with those wires in the bedroom. And I can remember 15 years ago, in order to free myself from my academics ego, I set a goal to develop technology that my scientist friends would look down on, pour scorn on, and laugh at. I wanted to trigger human emotions and to take people on playful journeys that surprise and delight. So Maria designed a birthday card where I'd asked her to be heavy on the line art, and I would then go into Photoshop and delete little sections of the line art to allow the current to flow through the graphics in invisible ways. And when you picked up the card, you accidentally touched the flowers printed from silver ink, which caused a microcontroller to be triggered, which in turn sent a current through the silver line art to the LEDs placed on the tips of the candles. The candles flickered, and if you blew on the cupcake, the moisture from your breath was sensed between the printed tracks, which caused the candles to go out and the speaker to play Happy Birthday. So let me show you how we create things now. We print these conductive ink stickers on paper or plastic. I'll just put this down over here. And so we print this conductive ink, and on the back we press on a control module, which I have somewhere, which is here. So we press this control module on from the back, and that sends voltage signals through the paper and along these tracks. And then we laminate a graphic over the top, and so when someone touches somewhere on the graphic, the control module can tell which touch point you've touched. And we have two types of control module. One of them is Bluetooth, so that will send a Bluetooth signal to a smartphone or a computer, and the other is audio, so it has an audio output to a speaker, the same as the post that I played before. This is something that we made for DJ Qbert. So we made an interactive album cover for him, and inside are these paper thin DJ decks that connect to a smartphone, and I use this to DJ. So I tell my kids that on paper I'm the best DJ in the world, and that I DJ to thousands of people, but I only DJ for a couple of seconds, and sadly I'm not going to do it right now. But yeah, so that's what we made for DJ Qbert, which was a lot of fun. This is something that we did at a TED workshop a few years ago. So the attendees of the workshop could put this sticker onto the cover of the book, and when you press a button and open an app, the book will pair with the phone. Yeah, and then you can touch different parts of the book and it will play the sound. I'll just bring my screen up there.
The best place to find the lovers at the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, tripping fast and never talk slow. Come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance now.
Okay, enough of that. But basically, I did an Ed Sheeran remix on the cover of the book. Yeah, let me see what else we've got. So we also made this, which is the songwriter's notebook, and notebooks are supposed to play notes. So in the back cover, there's a fold-out Bluetooth piano. So I'll try and show you that down here as well. So we have an app for piano. You press the little button, it should pair, and I'll start again. Sadly I can't play piano, so this is the bit where I totally fail. But the idea is the songwriter can be writing their song in the notebook, So they write in their lyrics, and then they have an idea what it sounds, so they fold out their keyboard, and then they can play piano on the back of the book. And that's the idea of the types of things we want to create. We want to just have ordinary things becoming extraordinary. So I will quit that. What else can I tell you about what I've made? So, oh yeah, so a few months ago, someone I know, Bootsy Collins, asked if I could make a poster with some Bootsy sounds on it, and he also asked if I could then FedEx this Bootsy poster, and I think made a pizza box that had Bootsy radio on it, and FedEx them to Jimmy Fallon. So I FedEx them off to Jimmy Fallon, and to my surprise, he opened his show with the things that were made.
Hey guys, before we start the show tonight, it's going to be a fun one, an interesting one. We asked our friend Bootsy Collins if he wanted to do anything for our show, just because we're a fan of Bootsy. Here's something he came up with. Him and his friend Dr. Kate Stone, they invented this thing. So if you just press it now and then, you just hear
jingle jangle. Looks like you got a ring on the bell, Funketeer.
So anyways, Bootsy is going to be in our show tonight.
Okay, so what we've aimed to do is use existing manufacturing processes, materials and devices to enable magical user experiences and journeys. And also, I guess we want to democratize design. So we created software tools along with easy to use prototyping methods that allow almost anyone to create one of these experiences. And we use the same tools for prototyping as we would do for manufacturing. And so that ensures that producing anything at volume is just a simple next step. A few years ago, we had a design intern, and she created a beautiful poster using our tools and our materials, and I'll just show you a quick video. I never know how to follow that. When I first saw that, it made me cry. I was so happy. So I see now that one of my skills is understanding a problem and identifying how I can combine existing materials, tools, and methods to solve what at first might seem impossible. And whether that's moving sheep or electrons. And we believe that for a user experience to be magical, science and art must seamlessly blend together. And if science is the human understanding of how something in our natural world works, and art is our expression of how it looks or makes us feel, then perhaps art plus science equals nature. So technology is shrinking, and a computer used to fill a room, then a desk, then our lap, our palm, and now sits on our wrist. And we've reached a point where technology can fit inside nearly anything. Someone even injected a chip into my hand. I'm not quite sure what to use this for. I did use it once to open a hotel door room in Baltimore, but it's a whole nother story. And whilst design has many different styles, nostalgia often leads to the design of products that look old-fashioned. And the combination of invisible technology and nostalgic design leads me to believe that the future may look more like the past than the present. More like the world of Merlin and Mary Poppins, where the ordinary becomes the extraordinary. So to understand our future, we need to look at the past. And when I look back towards the origins of technology, I see a journey from simple tools to humans recreating fire, inventing the wheel, the plough, the printing press, communications, and electronics. And I see a progression of removing friction from our lives. This increases our strength, keeps us safe, and connects our communities. It also drives us towards convenience and away from traditional skills and knowledge. And I believe we're now at a point where so much friction has been removed from our lives that we humans are almost surplus to requirement. If we need transport, a car arrives. We're hungry, food is delivered. And we're always connected to the cloud and each other with our every single movement tracked. Now, whilst it's great to remove most friction, we need to ensure we keep a healthy dose of it in our lives. For example, growing or choosing ingredients for our food, cooking, walking to work, writing a letter, and chopping firewood. Friction is what makes each moment meaningful, mindful, and memorable. And what would our lives be like if all friction was removed? Would you be able to live in that future? So now I'm going to bring in a guest. Hey, where are you, other Kate?
Hi, yeah, so I'm out here on a hike in the Catskills, New York.
So what can you tell us about friction?
So I love to come out here hiking, sometimes in the winter when it's -5 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'll hike for something like 8 hours deep into the woods, and then I'll put up my hammock, spend an hour gathering wood, building a fire, boiling some water, and making a cup of tea. And then when I sit down with that cup of tea, I say, why do I do this? I'm terrified. Why did I not just stay at home, flick on the kettle, and have a cup of tea on the couch? And it's then that I realised that this will probably be one of the very few cups of tea that I actually remember in my life. So I try to embrace friction, to give my life more meaning, and just enjoy these wonderful wilderness journeys.
Wow, enjoy that cup of tea.
Oh, thank you. Don't worry, I will do. Bye.
Wow, quite a journey. You wouldn't catch me you wouldn't catch me doing that. um, so clearly there's good friction and there's bad friction. And removing any friction that helps keep us safe or removes genuine suffering, provides a quality of education or health and wealth, is well worth pursuing. However, we need to identify where to draw the line. Cross that line and I believe our mental health and general well-being will actually suffer. Okay, now I want to talk a little trash. Last year I became horrified with how much trash I was creating in my home, and I decided to change my diet to reduce my waste. So turning to the kitchen oracle, the trash can, I dug deep and I found soy milk cartons, tofu packets, plastic bags for bread, old bean cans, and worst of all, plastic cartons for salad. And there and then I decided to shop, cook, and clean in a way that provides little to no waste. You see, we become accustomed to thinking that it's normal to buy products wrapped in packaging. It is not normal. Lettuce in a plastic container is not normal. So I thought to myself, how difficult can it be? So I learned to make soy milk, tofu, bread, seitan, hummus, and I even started to make my own baked beans, cakes, and some lovely pastries, because who does not love a cinnamon swirl? Of course, nothing worked the first time, but I always persisted, just like on that motorbike. And I started to shop where I could put each item in a paper bag or no bag, where I could fill my own containers from bulk, olive oil, peanut butter, sugar, spices, etc. And I now even mill my own flour. And I tried to shop and live in a way similar to how my grandparents did. And I actually felt closer to them, even though sadly they're no longer with us. So don't be a prepper with a bunker of food you'll never eat whilst living a wasteful lifestyle. Instead, build resilience. Live every day meeting your needs by creating what you require whenever possible from what is around you. And instead of recycling, just don't create waste. Reuse or compost. All of these things become who you are. And resilience is a lifestyle, not something you store in a bunker. And this experience reminded me of my grandmother's advice, something that I've tried to use in all the things that I do. How can I meet my needs using the resources closest to me? And I used to think it was about being frugal, but now I know that if you cut your coat from the cloth at hand, then whatever you create is far more likely to be fit for purpose when produced from its own environment, with a kind of built-in resilience, invention driven by necessity and fueled by resourcefulness. The technology that I've developed and products we've created are all built on that principle. So why should I not use the same thinking with how I eat and live? And this further reinforces it as a core principle in everything that I try to do, and in shaping a vision for the future world that I want to live in. So, having considered a little of our past, reflected on our future, and explored how embracing friction develops resilience, my curiosity led me to ask, who are we and how do we work? I wanted to understand the difference between our brain and our mind. Now clearly our brain is an organ, mostly inside our head, consisting of two connected halves, left and right. So I wondered if our minds could be similar, two halves, with an inner mind in our body and an outer mind as our environment, connected together via our 5 known senses to create a full mind. So when I ask someone, where do you have your best ideas? They'll often say in the shower or on a walk or chewing a pencil. So if we use our environment to think and make decisions, just like those sheep, then surely our environment must actually be a part of our mind. Would a spider without a web still be a spider? And can we still be who we are without our surroundings? So I love to hike, and when I walk through the forest, I imagine that I'm the needle on a record, and the trail is the groove, and the friction created as I step over rocks and duck under branches and wade through streams, that friction generates thoughts that are in my head, and those thoughts are like the music on my mind. And when I stand on the top of a mountain and take in the view and feel a flow of energy come into my whole body from wherever I place my attention, I visualize field lines of different colors flowing into me, each representing a sense with a width corresponding to the amount of information. The sight of the sky or the stars, the smell and taste of the air, the sound of animals and weather, and the feeling of air and heat on my skin. And the moment on that mountain when I feel absolutely insignificant is also when I feel a part of everything. That I am the universe, and I have the potential to be a part of the ultimate mind. Now, as we walk down the street, our senses detect our environment with a constant flow of data coming in to our inner mind, allowing us to maintain our journey with our auto-collision antenna, magically ensuring we don't bump into each other through subtle course corrections. And as soon as we pull this thing out of our pocket, all those field lines, they just bend into the phone with just sight and sound remaining. We lose our connection to our outer mind. People bump into each other, walk into lampposts, and even fall down holes. that stuff really happens. So have you ever wondered what the inside of your mind might look like, or what it would be like to read someone's mind? Well, if our environment is our mind, then just looking at the environment that someone lives or works in, builds, creates, or travels through can actually be a glimpse into their mind. And if you don't like the music in your mind, then just try changing the record, such as your environment and the people, objects, or journeys that you travel through in it. Consider what this means when we design homes, hospitals, schools, and prisons. How often do we consider that when we design a space, place, object, or journey, that we're actually designing the inside of people's minds? And I've started to consider this as I develop technology, design products, and think about the actual purpose of my work. And if you want to know what the inside of your mind looks like, then just take a walk in the forest or up a mountain. Look at the sky and just see how beautiful the inside of your mind actually is. So, in fairness, my parents probably bought me that one-way ticket to expand my mind. And it only really became one way because my curiosity led me to stay longer, let the return leg of the journey lapse, and explore areas of my mind that only existed on the other side of the world. And once I had the realization that my environment is my mind, that what is around me is who I am, and that all of our minds actually overlap, making us one, it became very difficult to see the world how I saw it before. In much the same way as I couldn't unhear after my childhood eavesdropping with that radio transmitter in the bedroom. So, thinking about radios, I wanna talk about communication. And I'm sure you've all been on a call in the middle of your flow when you're cut off by someone's urgent desire to deliver their opinion when they should have been listening. What happened to the art of communication? So a year ago, encouraged by some preppers I met in the forest, I bought my first ham radio. And to be honest, I was mostly mic shy until COVID-19 hit. And I joined a local club who run a repeater which sits on top of a nearby mountain, transmitting at 146.805 megahertz. And every morning at 8:35, Paul, AC2UQ, puts out a call for a friendly QSO, or conversation, that's affectionately become known as the 8:35 on the 8:05. So when Paul, AC2UQ, puts out the call, he doesn't know who's going to join.
This frequency in use is this frequency in use. This is AC2UQ, Alpha Charlie 2, Uniform, Quebec. My name is Paul, transmitting from New Paltz. If you have an FCC call sign, please call now with that call sign, your name and your QTH. Please come now.
And one by one, we respond with our call signs and QTH, or location. And in a polite, random order, he creates the running order from whomever checks in. KD2 RYD, this is Kate in Glenford above Ashokan.
Good morning to you all. So Nick, KD2 RBR is here. And then,
so ham radio is over 100 years old, and it's one of the oldest forms of electronics-based social media, preceded only by Morse code over telegraph. And on a radio, when you press the push to talk, you can't hear anyone else, and so we can only hold a conversation by following a protocol. Each of us takes a few minutes to speak, and we pass what we affectionately call the candle onto the next person until we've all spoken. And the limited technology creates a friction that ensures we practice the art of listening. And in fact, we listen far more than we speak. And if you have an immediate thought you want to share, then write it down and wait your turn. And maybe someone else will answer it, or you'll realize it wasn't actually that urgent. And the last few months of morning QSOs with Faceless Strangers, it's been one of the most delightful things I've ever experienced.
Hoping you'll resolve that issue. Rob, RWS, please turn it over to Ken, KD2 TQS in Rhinebeck. Ken, it'll go to David, KD2 MQE in New Paltz, my hometown.
And I've learned to listen more than I speak, and to ensure that every voice has its time to be heard, and that together, no matter who we are or who turns up, a community is built when we all learn to connect, respect, and listen to each other. So, to wrap up, my early years were filled with a playful curiosity, creating magical experiences, developing resourcefulness, and a growing understanding of allowing without commanding. And at Novalia, the company I started 15 years ago, we've exploited the pervasiveness of print and printing, and whilst using what is around us to create experiences with everyday objects that might be more at home in Merlin's laboratory or Mary Poppins' carpet bag, my journeys through the forest have taught me to embrace friction, and that too much technology is actually detrimental to our mental health. We need to ask, how can we better balance convenience with necessity and use technology to create more meaningful, mindful, and memorable experiences? And standing on the top of mountains has given me an insight into my mind and a feeling a feeling that we are our environment. And how can a more subtle use of embedded technology allow us to be gently informed, guided, or have emotions triggered while still maintaining the connection between our inner and outer minds? And listening to a combination of my grandmother and the trash can has helped me discover resilience. And see that maybe that's all we need to survive the zombie apocalypse, and that we might not need too much technology at all. So could stripping back to a simpler way of living enable us to be healthier, safer, more connected, and kinder to each other, whilst at the same time treating the environment with more respect? An accidental journey into ham radio helped me recognize that sometimes old-fashioned, low-fidelity technology with delightful friction can actually provide us with a richer, more human experience that allows us to build community and take advantage of what we all bring to the table when we ensure that every voice is heard. All of these personal experiences in my life so far have given me an insight into the future that I want to build, both personally and with the technology that my team and I develop. In my own small way, it helps me wonder, how can I use a little modern day alchemy to transmute the ordinary into the extraordinary, or sometimes just embrace the ordinary in all its natural potential? I do hope that some of my journeys and insights allow you to see aspects of your life in a different light, perhaps even challenge the concept of who you are. And if so, may you never be able to see the world the same again. I've been Kate, KD2, RYD, Kilo Delta 2, Romeo Yankee Delta, and from my QTH, I'll say 7-3 and clear on your final. Bye.
Wow. What a truly great presentation. Your journey has been absolutely fascinating. And I think that's the kind of, I'm not getting too many questions. People are just astounded by everything. But
Sorry.
one thing people do kind of want to know is what's up next for you? What's going on in the future?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, as we know, there's kind of a global pandemic thing going on, which triggered a zombie apocalypse from New York City arriving in Woodstock. So my daughter and I had to get in the car and drive 3,200 miles and escape west. And we've just arrived in LA. So now we're in LA. Yeah, that's what happened next. And we got caught in a snowstorm for 3 days in Wyoming and had to hide in the basement at the end of a dirt road of a Vietnam veteran with 2 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star. But that was a whole nother story.
Different presentation, right?
It's another presentation. Yeah, well, you know, the thing is, we create these floor panels, we create these wall panels that people touch, and they play sound, and we do them at music festivals. And you know, who knows what was a music festival? I've forgotten. And no one wants to touch anything. So we've been working on how to make floor panels, things that go on the floor that you can step on, that trigger sounds, connect to a cell phone, trigger videos, visuals. And those are things we can put in places like shopping centers and, you know, shopping malls, supermarkets.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so people can trigger things with their feet and then, you know, make their environment change. So,
oh my gosh, it's so innovative. I don't think many of us would have thought of that, but that's truly. I did get one practical kind of question. Most people are just, you know, so happy. How expensive is conducive ink compared to regular ink?
Well, because it's not just the ink. So, you know, my camera. You know, so that, yeah, the ink's more expensive, but in anything that you print, the ink is not the most expensive thing. So the substrate, the printing process, and all of that ends up being more than the ink. And what we do, as you saw in the video, you know, is we have, you know, we print the ink. That doesn't necessarily cost a lot, but then we put this control module on that we've designed that sticks on the back. So it's actually the electronics is the most expensive part. And then it depends how many you make, how big is it, what does it do, you know. And with anything, you know, if we do a project, it's the time it takes us to design it, to create it, and all of the normal design and, you know, sort of costs that you have around creating and delivering any project, not necessarily the item. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Kate. This really was an incredible session. Everybody enjoyed it, and we appreciated hearing about you. I wish you could hear more about that cross-country trip. It sounds like fun, although challenging.
Oh, I've just written it up. So I've just written it up as a blog.
Oh, wonderful.
It gave me 8 amazing insights into the USA, into history, religion, politics, food. It just gave me 8 incredible insights. So I've written that up as a blog, and yeah, I'll put that out somewhere.
Well, hopefully we'll all get to see that. That was just wonderful. To all of our audience, if you'd like to continue the conversation, please check out the Experience Design Forum, which you can access from your attendee dashboard. And this session will be available on demand, probably within the next 24 hours. You can access it again. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, let's go on to the next session. Thanks a lot, Kate.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.